Hello, joining me today is, he's now an author who grew up in New York before moving to Denver, Colorado, and then spent 10 years working in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles before doing another 10 years stint in real estate. It's Aaron Pfeffer.
Hi, Andy. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on. Aaron, tell me a bit about yourself then.
Yeah, look, you covered some of the ground. The other part that was in the middle there is I spent college in Indiana University Business School, but the past 20 years have been spent in Los Angeles, and it's been an up and down ride. It's mostly been great, but obviously during the times of the Great Recession, I had all of these investments that blew up in my face, and I took a pause and worked as a bartender for 2 years at the premier rock and roll hotel in the world, at the Sunset Marquis Hotel. And that really put me on a great trajectory, a totally different course in my life. And then everything was on the up. I moved into real estate after that, met my wife, had a son, started my own small business. And it just got me thinking about what the last decade has been and, where we're all heading as humanity, especially in the rapidly changing 21st century. And I was like, why don't I write a book about it?
That book is Of, By, and For the Hanged Man.
Yes, sir.
You describe it as a philosophical memoir. Can you tell us a bit about the book?
Yeah, no, look, I'm happy to expound on it. Again, this was written because I looked at it and I said, here's what happened to me, and here's how I was able to look at my own life and get introspective about the things that I needed to change. And that was one half of it, because obviously I wanted to just improve myself. But the other half of it was, how do I better contribute? How do I better contribute to humanity and understand where we're all heading? And again, because this is the 21st century, things are moving so quickly now, for better or for worse. And, we're, especially in this country, we're so divisive now. And it's about saying, hey, let's put the pause on that and figure out how we can all be doing better. And that's why I wrote the book. And the idea is I turn to the Hanged Man, who's this amazing depictive figure in history that teaches us all about introspection, teaches us all about facing our own contradictions, and how we can better apply that moving forward.
So the premise of the Lunchvox podcast is you're going to choose 8 random questions during the course of today's show. I've got a soundboard in front of me with 64 of these random, interesting and unusual questions on there. So all I'm going to want you to do is give me a number between 1 and 64, please.
38.
If our lives were cartoons, which cartoon would you like it to be and why?
Oh, I love that. That's good. If our lives were cartoons, I'm going to go with Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse. Such a great, simple time, such a great allegory for the Cold War. I love that. I thought those were good times in history. And there was just like this great underdog hero that nobody expected to be who the hero was. There you go. How about it was Mighty Mouse? Of course, I want us all to be Mighty Mouse.
I'm sensing your next book title. We Can All Be Mighty Mouse.
I'll write that one down just in case.
Okay. Can you please give me another number?
27.
What piece of advice would you give me?
So that's another great question. I have a life lessons board, and I say, you got to be careful. Always know what the other party is up to when they're giving advice. So I will say that. I want to preface it with that. But I would say read and write all the time. I try and give that advice to everybody. And I know that it's like, well, that's just, hey, we've all been doing that since grammar school. But have we? Because when, as we turn into adults, is that really what's happening? Are we really taking as much time to read and write? Reading is a lot easier. Oh, find 20 minutes, 30 minutes, read the news or read a book. But how easy is it, or how many of us are really actually putting our thoughts down on paper, whether that's just journaling or writing a short story, poetry, whatever it is, because that's what keeps education alive. So that's my advice. Read and write all the time, as much as possible, for yourself, not just for others. Do it for yourself. That's
really great advice, actually. And it resonates with something another guest we had on a few weeks ago said. So we had an author on, Sue Barnard, who said, in relation to writing, in respect to writing, get something down on paper because you can't edit a blank page.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Sue Barnard is a new hero of mine. I love that.
Okay, can I please have another number?
63.
Who would win, Solid Snake or Kevin from Home Alone?
So who was the first one? I know Kevin from Home Alone. Who was the first one?
Solid Snake. It's the title character from Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, got it. By the way, and I know Metal Gear. It's funny you mentioned that. I mean, it's funny that I picked the number 11 because that's probably we're going back to me being 11 years old playing Metal Gear. So Solid Snake or Kevin from Home Alone?
Yeah.
I'm going with Kevin.
Nice.
I mean, you just got it. I mean, Solid Snake had many lives. The dude he's out there with reckless abandon. I think Kevin thinks things through.
How do you see it going down?
Oh, I'm sure I mean, I see Solid Snake just armed to the teeth, to the gills. He's got a knife in every ankle and a gun in every holster. And there's Kevin with just, some jacks and like little toy trucks. he just put in the right place. and simple tripwire twine. That's it. Solid Snake never saw it coming.
Paint can to the face.
Yeah, exactly. I like that too.
Okay, thank you. Can I have your fourth number, please?
Yeah, let's go with 5.
How can planes fly?
How can planes fly? I mean, are we talking like in the ethereal sense, or how technical are we getting here?
I will let you decide on how you interpret the question.
How can planes fly? All right. I'm going to answer it this way. I know a lot of people who don't fly because they like to say humans were never meant to fly. And I always say, well, we built airplanes, so clearly we were. So they fly because we because we were meant to, and the Wright brothers in 1903 figured it out at Kitty Hawk. That's why. That's how they could fly.
My brother hates flying, and his one mantra is always sit at the back because you never hear a plane reversing into a mountain. I'm not sure that makes any difference, but
if it gives him solace.
So, Aaron, you say that you wrote your book to inspire yourself to be a better person.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. Yes.
I note from because I ask all my guests to write me a little biog, just so I'm clued in a little bit about you and who you are. And it's interesting that you start it with the words husband and father. That's a really important part of your life, I'm guessing.
The most important part.
Have you got young kids?
I have one, 2 years old.
You have 1 2-year-old. Do you think that it's that life-changing event that has inspired you to reevaluate your life and think of the legacy that you leave and inspire other people? And I'm just intrigued by that connection between the arrival of your child and your book.
Unquestionably. I mean, there were a number of reasons I wrote the book, but the number one impetus had to have been my son coming. And I think it was 6 weeks before my wife was about to give birth. I turned to her, I said, I'm going to write a book. And thinking that she would just say, tell me how ridiculous that was, she looked at me and said, go for it.
It's extremely supportive then. And how did family craft that?
The first few months after he was born was when I was trying to outline and put this together, and that was obviously a struggle. But once we kind of settled into figuring out the parenthood thing a little bit, I'm not sure you quite really ever figure it out, obviously, but months 4 and 5, when we started having things a little bit easier and understood what direction we were heading, that's when they just opened up this time frame to say, now I should do this, and how I was going to spend my time and how my wife was going to help. And she was incredibly supportive in helping me do that. And, just kind of, I didn't write on the weekends, which meant that I would come home and spend all weekend with them and just focus solely on being with my family. I mean, obviously there were thoughts that came into my head and maybe I'd jot them down, but I wouldn't write again until it was only Monday through Friday. So that was extremely inspirational, spending all that time with them and thinking about what it was to be with them and the legacy that I want to leave. Like you mentioned, that's how it helped craft.
What other aspects of your life has this experience changed then? Are you still working in real estate or?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, look, writing just one book with nothing else behind you prior to that does not a business make, obviously, and it's going to be a long time. But I'm writing a lot more now. And again, I'm writing for myself and really just enjoying that and finding an awesome, amazing freedom in that. And it feels great. But yes, I continue to work every day. And I still own my own small business. And, that's still the focus and what puts food on the table. That's not going to change anytime soon.
And the one thing that I realized with young children, especially 2-year-olds, one thing that comes along with 2-year-olds is Daniel Tiger.
Oh, I love that you brought up Daniel Tiger. I mean, The amount of Daniel Tiger, the amount of songs in Daniel Tiger that are now in our heads before we go to sleep. By the way, how old are your children? Do you have one or two, or how many do you have?
My daughter is 5. I have another one on the way at the moment. And I
Congratulations.
should probably say anybody listening to this who I haven't told that, sorry.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's been out in the ether for a while, so I lose track. But yeah, my daughter at the age of 2 discovered Daniel Tiger and describe it because I bet there's a lot of people listening to this who haven't got a clue what we're talking about now, and I do want to make this a bit more inclusive.
Okay, so Fred Rogers, obviously Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, was this incredibly huge show throughout the 80s, and just kind of melted away into the 90s and 2000s. But a lot of people still remember who he was. Well, some producers took that on and turned it into a cartoon cat who kind of took over the lineage of Mr. Rogers. And Daniel Tiger has this little neighborhood. It's like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but he is this little tiger. I think he's about 4 years old. And it's just his little insulated life and neighborhood. And he's got all these friends. Some of them are human, some of them are other animals. And it's all about just their little trials and tribulations as being little kids and really talking about their feelings. That's like the show more than anything else, is constantly just bringing up that they're sad, they're happy, they're mad. And then, he's in a world of make-believe, which the kids love to join him on when he's involved in some little journey, or specifically they're just making up songs. The adults in the show are constantly making up songs to help the children deal with their feelings. It's brilliant.
And I cannot think of the number of times that we've had to use a Daniel Tiger song to help my daughter express emotions or use your words.
Use your words, but it's a brilliant show. It's great, and I would think that he would sit there for 3 or 4 minutes before he would lose interest, like so many other activities. But when Daniel Tiger's on, it could just be like a 45 straight minute thing. And then I look at my wife, and I'm like, we're just terrible parents. He's just sitting here watching a screen. We need to do something else. But he's just entranced. He loves it.
Yeah, we had like 2 years solidly where it was the only thing my daughter would watch. And thank goodness for Netflix.
It's so funny you say that, because we'll try and here's Sesame Street, here's Curious George, here's a litany of other shows. Nope. He goes crazy as soon as you turn it off. And now the worst part is now he knows he's starting to understand that there are different episodes and the ones that he likes and doesn't like. And then you get to play that guessing game of is it this one? Is this the one you were talking about?
There we go. The world according to Daniel Tiger. Right. Okay, let's go back to some random questions. Would you please give me another number, Aaron?
50.
50 it is. What's the biggest challenge that the next generation will face?
That's a great question. So when we say the next generation, the one our children, the ones being born right now, Generation Alpha, is that who we're talking about, or the ones that are about to take over power? Are we talking about the millennials or centennials?
Again, I'm going to leave that in your hands as to what you want to talk about.
I love you brought this question up, or I love that I landed on this question, because chapter 4 of my book is called A Generation Collaborator, where I talk about how, there's this great quote from Socrates who talks about how the coming generations are all terrible. And there's this idea that this has been going on for 2,000 years. The elderly all think that the young are just ungrateful and horrible to deal with, but I don't feel that way. I think I should all collaborate with each other, obviously. And I go out to prove that. And I talk about the 7 living generations that are here. And again, this is why I wrote the book. The Generation Alpha, let's go with them. That's what we're talking about. That's who's being born now, and they still have another 8 years to go of being born. What's going to be their biggest challenge, sadly, is climate change. There's just no way around that. You could talk about, a million things, including technology, how fast everything changes right now. You could talk about, the pedagogy of the world, just anything that somebody wants to bring up, or the changing faces and how everybody looks and everybody's movement around the world. But it's unquestionably climate change, and it's going to happen a lot faster than we all want it to. It's already happening, obviously, but people think it's still 50 or 100 or 200 years away, and it's not. Everybody's really going to wake up in the next 10 years and say, oh boy.
Do you think they will be motivated to actually make change?
That's an interesting question. I think everybody is ultimately motivated. Individuals are motivated to make change. We all look around and feel the same way. We'd like to do something. Everybody also looks around and says, well, what am I supposed to do? And that's a fair question too. We can all do our small parts, But on a grand scale, on a scale of corporations, on a scale of, multinationals, on a scale of the entire world coming together, that's going to be too little too late. I look at it like, we're down to very, very, very few options. And I think technology and ultimately letting, machine learning and artificial intelligence take over our lives and the lives of how everything's run, the sooner the better, because we can use that to make a difference. And, who knows if geoengineering is really going to change anything? But believe me, it doesn't matter whether you personally recycle or you personally don't buy that jewelry, or you personally stop flying 20% less a year. That's not what's going to change anything. I mean, what's going to change is truly, truly, a massive reduction of carbon, or sucking it out of the atmosphere, or planting the trillion trees or so like we're talking about now, or just understanding that you can use artificial intelligence or machine learning, let them take over and make the decisions, so the algorithms understand, here's what we really need to do to stop contributing to climate change, and here's where everybody needs to live now. You're talking about housing, currency, but these are larger questions. These are the massive conversation to have.
Okay, thank you. Can I have another number, please?
Let's go with 51.
If you had too much money, what would you do with it?
I'd give it away. I'd give as much of it as possible away, and still, figure out a number that makes me comfortable, makes my family comfortable, and then I'd give the rest away.
Who would you give it to? How would you determine that?
That depends how much money I'd have. If it was too much, I'd want to go even further. I mean, like, I have a few of the nonprofits that I like to give a couple bucks to already, but I'd really want to look at, on a larger scale, ones that would make me comfortable, where I'd know the money would not be wasted. And that's who I'd give it to. I'd probably give it to ones that that specifically target individual lives to help make them better. And that's who I'd give it to.
Okay. Any examples?
That's a fair question. No, I'm not going to do that. I do have some in mind, actually, but I'm not going to just single them out on here, because I don't I wouldn't want to put that in anybody else's head, like that's right or that's wrong. But it would be like, I know which ones that I would feel comfortable and give it to, and I give it to them.
That's a fair answer. Okay, next question, please.
How many do I have left?
You are on number 7, so 7 and 8 left.
Let's go with 52.
What's your holy grail? Okay, so this is what's the one thing perhaps you've always coveted, but you've never quite been able to either achieve or obtain?
Love this question. I'm a tennis player. It's the great physical outlet for me. I've never been able to achieve 5-0 level. I've kind of been mired in 4-0, 4-5 for a long time. I've just never had that breakthrough to a true 5-0 USTA level. That's my holy grail. It's a very selfish answer, but there you go. I would love to just touch that void. Just know that I get on the court and can be able to take on other players in like the 5-0, 5-5 level.
Okay, that's great. Dominating the court.
Oh yeah, it's important to me.
Okay, and can I have your final number, please?
Sure. My son being 2 years old, let's go with 2.
Okay, number 2. I hope this is a good question now.
They're all good questions. These are good.
What's your favorite thing about yourself?
My favorite thing about myself. Oh, here we go. This is good, because I've had a lot of time to think about this writing a book. I like how annoying I am. I mean, obviously, growing up, that used to be like, I don't want to be so annoying to others. But you know what? I like how annoying I am right now. It perpetuates conversations. It brings about interesting things. I needle people. I really do. I push them. I push myself. Man, I get annoying, and sometimes, or most of the time, that gets results. So I like that.
So on your annoyance, what would... who should we pick? I'm not going to say your wife, because that's possibly too easy. What would your best friend say about you with respect to how annoying you are?
I think he actually told me once. My best friend said, "You know what? It makes you interesting." I like that too, and I think that's really that changed my mindset. It was actually my best friend who helped me, create an ideal about. Oh yeah, that's a good thing. Let's turn it into a positive. Makes me an interesting person.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for coming on the Lunchvox podcast today, Aaron. I've really enjoyed that. You've had some really, really lovely responses to the questions, and always great to talk about Daniel Tiger. Your book, Of, By and For the Hanged Man, is out now. It's released in January of this year. Where can people go and find that if they fancy having a read?
You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on the Barnes & Noble website, or even Kobo, or a number of other websites. It's on my own website, ampfeffer.aaron. It's Aaron Michael, so ampfeffer.com. Or specifically, most people find it through Amazon. So if you type in either my name, author name, A.M. Pfeffer, or the book's title, it'll pop up.
Okay, and your next project, what are you working on now?
Oh, great question. I mean, like I said, we talked about it in the beginning. I'm writing for myself, so I just had some poetry published. I put a piece on the Good Men Project. I'm writing a lot on Medium right now, just doing some fun stuff for myself. I am doing an ebook that I hope to have out next year. I don't want to talk too much about it, but because I kind of want it to be a surprise, but I'll have it out next year. And then I have about 3 or 4 other big ideas that I hope to get to do over the next 5 or 6 years.
Okay, well, Aaron, thank you very much for your time today. I really, really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Andy. This was great. Thank you so much for having me on.
And if you'd like to join us on the Lunchvox podcast as a guest, then please do get in touch with us. You can do that at Lunchvox Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, email. I don't know. Get in touch. Also, if you have any questions that you might like us to put to the guests, then you're more than welcome to send those in as well. Until next Wednesday lunchtime. Bye.